occupations that are not really desirable for striking for obvious reasons. People, like police officers and people in emergency services. It's a difficult one to answer, to be honest with you, Alan, because everybody's got their own opinion as to whether or not it's right for people to strike. At the end of the day, if you're involved in that profession and you feel that that everybody else around you is getting a fairer crack of the whip and you're not, well, then the answer is simple. You are going to support a strike, aren't you? Mainly because you don't want yourself and your family to be suffering whilst you were going out and doing work, and Joe Bloggs next door is doing a similar job, and he's getting a much greater pay than you are.
Well, talking about young people, we're looking now at the possibility of schools sort of doing 1 day a week less. I don't know how that's going to affect people who are working and don't have childcare. I don't know how it's going to affect the children for education. I'm sure the children will be very happy that they get, well, a lot of them might be very happy they're getting 1 day less. And then huge amount of redundancies and maybe going back to doing, the online learning that we had in the pandemic, which seemed to work for some and not for others. There's going to be a bit of a stink, a bit of a mess over this, Dave, isn't there, if schools go down to 4 day a week?
I honestly can't see that happening. I think it'll interrupt the whole way in which the schools function. You imagine they're going to be trying to cram 5 days worth of lessons into 4 days, because you can't do things like PE and rugby and soccer training in an online class. You can't do that. They have to be supervised in a gym or a sports hall to be able to do those kind of classes. Anything which is sort of art and craft based and what have you, or sport based, you just can't do that. I mean, fair enough, you might be able to get away with doing maths and English for a little while at home. But being honest with you, I think this idea of a 4 day week is nonsense.
Well, ultimately it comes down to money and it's cost savings, and we know we're in this cost of living crisis where councils have to save money, governments have to save money. A lot of people might be critical and saying, well, look, we're spending 100 million here on something. I think the Welsh Government are coming under scrutiny on their spending, public outrage about some of the spending and the projects that they're spending on. And I don't know. I just see maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, maybe at the next Senate elections, that a lot of this will be brought up, and politicians will be held to account.
I think the way you've got to look at some of the stuff is some of the ideas that they have are unpopular, but instinctively that there is something that's right about them. There may be elements of things that are wrong, but effectively some of the things are not as bad as they first seem. For instance, when the smoking ban was introduced, I mean, Wales was one of was the first country to introduce the smoking ban, and it was pretty unpopular when it was introduced. A lot of opposition, huge amounts of opposition, and of course there were distinct health benefits to be derived from it. And I think now we're starting to see the benefits of that. Obviously the downside of it was that it forced a lot of pubs and clubs to actually close their doors, and it signalled a change in the way in which social life carried on in a lot of ways. You can't say that everything that they're doing is bad, really.
I remember the smoking ban, and we were sort of like, oh, wow, that's great, because I hated going into a pub with smoke, but we were the kind of people who like to sit outside in the pub wherever we went because we had children, and all of a sudden from we're not going in there because it's full of smoke, we're going to sit in the garden. All of a sudden we were like being guffed over by these people who were all sat outside, chain smoking. Anyway, there we go. So let's look at one of the biggest events coming up now. This is on Sunday, Friday the 11/11, that you're going to that in the parish church in Llanelli. And then on Sunday we have the massive, always a big event in Llanelli. Pandemic, we saw it was just very few people, but now the Remembrance Day parade is back, and at Llanelli Town Hall it's going to be a massive day, isn't it?
it's always an interesting day, to be honest with you. And over the last few years, I've seen more and more people coming along to the event, the Remembrance Sunday. And I remember as a teenager going to these with my dad, and obviously he was a very proud man who wore his medals. But, there was the usual turnout of people there. And there were obviously, at that time, there were a lot more ex-servicemen, ex-World War II servicemen going there. But there wasn't the number of people that would attend there. There'd be a small gathering, but there wouldn't be a lot there. But over the last the last, say, 6-7 years, we've seen a huge rise in the number of people going to the Remembrance Sunday service, which is really, really nice. And I think it's nice also to see people who are wearing medals of their loved ones as well, and going along there to support them. And that always cheers me up.
I always wonder where these people come from in Llanelli, because town centre and sort of almost like 4 or 5 days a week is dead. There's hardly anyone there. And then you get these big events that we got coming up now. It's November, we're just past Bonfire Night, and now we've got the Christmas Reindeer Parade and the Christmas Carnival coming up. Yeah. Christmas is here, Dave. Ho ho ho. Are you a bar humbug kind of person, or do you love all this stuff? Do you go along and you really get into it? Even, we've got some people putting the decorations up in Sandy Road as I speak, I think, ready for the carnival.
I think it's nice to see Christmas come along, because I think people feel as though it's a nice, happy time, and everybody looks forward to a little bit of Christmas spirit, especially if they've got young children as well, because that makes it even more exciting as well. Yeah, I don't dislike Christmas. It's a nice time of year, and I think generally people feel happy about things. It's a bit of an anticlimax in January, though, isn't it? When the Christmas decorations come down, and we're faced with the dark, gloomy, cold winter nights, and of course it's just it's just a miserable couple of months, really. January and February are always miserable months, but and obviously there's not a lot happening, because not many people are going out and stuff like that. So it's traditionally not a great time of year, January and February.
Well, we'll be there. We'll be there at the Remembrance Day parade. We'll be there at the Christmas Carnival. We'll be there at the Reindeer Parade as well. But for now, Dave, if you can stick some more lumps of coal on the fire. It's getting cold here at the HQ for Christmas. I'm not an Ebenezer Scrooge. Bob Cratchit, go and get a bucket of coal. And many thanks for taking part today in this new venture for us, really, isn't it? It is something we're doing that we hope people will enjoy anyway. This sort of chat about what's going on in the news predominantly. So many thanks again for coming in and sparing your time.
It's good to speak to you. Thanks, Alan.